And first of all, like I really enjoy it because I really learn a lot from this weekend boot camp. I believe that from this conference, and when I go back, like I can have something and bring back to my university, to my country, and I hope to make a difference.
It's something new, it's a new experience, it's very insightful. It's also very amazing to be surrounded by so many people. It's also very fun, and finally it's empowering.
Without those words, they cannot be a social enterprise.
Weekend International Bootcamp definitely makes me feel more equipped with more knowledge, which I can share back to my university where I come from in my hometown, Bacolod. It's also made me feel more participative in regards to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, as well as knowing which steps to take in order to achieve these goals.
Yes, we can! Yes, we can!
Good day, my name is Norby Salonga, and this is LC Talks, a webinar series featuring social entrepreneurs, advocates, innovators, and researchers. For this episode, we'll be featuring the researchers of the #Weekend International Research Colloquium in the fields of environmental sustainability, inclusive education, inclusive growth, and universal healthcare. Joining us today is the researcher behind the research challenges of embedding sustainability in organizational culture, Mr. Jairo Trevino from the Ateneo de Manila University. Good day, Jairo. How are you?
Good morning, Doc Norby. I'm doing good.
Okay, are you ready? Your topic is very unique, no? Because in your research you are discussing more about the sustainability in organizational culture, which is something that's not usually touched when we speak of sustainability. Usually it's all about environment, but this time it's on organizational culture. So my first question to you is, what has led you to this topic of research?
My PhD electives more than a year ago with Dr. Jaffe from Singapore. As a requirement, we were asked to come up with a paper on this particular subject matter. I was so interested with sustainability because prior to that PhD, I had a shallow understanding, to put it bluntly, about sustainability. I thought of sustainability as something that is related only to the natural environment. But it broadened my perspective that this particular concept goes beyond the environment. And it was so interesting that I've almost had this chance to shift my dissertation topic from customer experience to sustainability. So that led me to working on this paper for sustainability.
Jairo, so just a follow-up question on what you said about how you pivoted from a more business perspective topic to now organizational sustainability is your topic for the dissertation. Was there a person or a situation that actually made you that realize that, you know, organizational sustainability is very much needed right now?
I have always been influenced by Dr. Benti Hanke to integrate humanistic management as part of the way we run businesses, because we feel that the economistic paradigm is too obsolete already and it's degrading. And when we look into the humanistic management principles, it is really aligned with sustainability concepts. However, in this particular paper, it's not just contemporary sustainability, but we wanted to go further by looking into regeneration already. And it's a tough concept because it's somehow scientific. Not everyone can understand it. And in my research, when I had the interview with the medium enterprises owners, their concept of sustainability is also as simple as my concept before I took this particular elective. So I feel like it's important for us to educate people on what sustainability is, especially the technicalities behind it, so that when there is better understanding of this term, it's easy for us to put things into action.
That's correct. And it's good that you pointed out about the role of MSMEs because the business community is comprised of 99.6% MSMEs, right? So it's bigger. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic basically tested the ability of those institutions to survive, right? And a lot of people are employed by MSMEs. No? So I think that's a very important perspective on sustainability. So the next question is something to do with organizational culture. When you're dealing with a very, especially for large companies, for large organizations, they already have their built culture. So my question is, what is the importance of embedding sustainability as part of organizational culture? And based on your research, how is this concept received by the key stakeholders or at least by the top management of those organizations? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
We embed sustainability as part of culture. It is becoming part of the core of the organization, not just the way we do things. It's their being already. And this will be very beneficial if sustainability will play an integral part, especially in the strategic planning process. For example, you mentioned earlier regarding the MSMEs taking part of the 99% of organizations in the Philippines. However, they are not currently required to come up with a report on sustainability. SEC, our Securities and Exchange Commission, mandated publicly listed companies to actually come up with a report on sustainability. Otherwise, they will be penalized. So that 1% will have a big impact. Those MSMEs registered under DTI, they're not yet required. But my problem with that particular requirement is it's simply reporting. The next question would be, who is checking? Because it's one way to report. It will be another to check and audit. My analogy for that is, it's like having a teacher asking you to pass a requirement, but that teacher will not give you feedback because you already complied with a mere submission. So if it becomes part of the culture, you will no longer wait for government institutions to mandate you to come up with sustainability programs. It is already in that being of an organization to come up with projects aligned with sustainability. And I think it's very critical since we don't have mandate yet for these small, medium enterprises to work on sustainability.
So that you pointed that out, no? Because when you said about publicly listed companies being required by SEC, that's rather transactional in nature because it's more of like consolidation of reports. Just regulatory, I think that's the right term. It's more of like a regulatory function of SEC to just look whether they're doing something for the environment or for social problems, no? But my next question has something to do with when you mentioned MSMEs and the role of MSMEs to be more transformative, if I got it correctly, like what are your suggestions to, let's say, government agencies like DTI to help or in order for MSMEs to be more involved in sustainability? Because in the Philippines, social enterprises are part of micro, small, and medium enterprise by category, and these SEs are very much active in social and environmental on top of their economic roles. So what is your point of view on the role of DTI, particularly in terms of enabling MSMEs to be more involved in sustainability?
Securities and Exchange Commission was able to come up with that memorandum last February 2019 for publicly listed companies to already report on their sustainability projects. I feel that DTI can also do the same. I agree with you, Dr. Norby, that for social enterprises, you don't need a mandate.
Yeah.
But among the MSMEs in the Philippines, how many are social enterprises? So it's
15%.
not really accounted for.
Around 15%.
And more than that, 15%. So how about the 85% who will not integrate sustainability in terms of their business practices? I feel more than just mandating, we need to tap a government agency who can also audit, because reporting these projects and programs can just be a mere compliance for them to have a good image. But what's the impact? We haven't seen this in organizations, not just in the Philippines, but also worldwide.
Another point there is that, well, in the Philippines, it's very sad to know that MSMEs are also violators of labor code. Like many of the provisions of labor code are being violated by MSMEs because they do not have the capacity to pay or to give decent employment, to pay them above minimum. I think that's also an issue of sustainability. Now let's go to the discussion related to the concept of regenerative sustainability. So can you share more about its importance, particularly in enterprises in the Philippines?
In my literature review, I came across this study from Climate Central. It's a New Jersey-based science organization, and they confirmed that some of our cities in the Philippines will be submerged by 2050. So the projected coastal flooding will affect cities like Manila, Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, among others, if I can still remember it right. Now, when you have these issues, the Philippines is facing a lot of environmental challenges. We've witnessed Ondoy before. We've seen deforestation, biodiversity losses. I feel like regenerative sustainability can offer a more proactive approach in terms of mitigating these environmental challenges. What's the difference between a contemporary sustainability with regeneration? This time, we are focusing on ecosystem reforestation, restoration, and even sustainable land use practices. It's funny that in the Philippines, we are an agricultural country, but the zoning system is not even followed right now. When we see an opportunity for us to create more money, that particular zone, which is intended for agriculture, is being turned into subdivision because they can earn more. So that's very economistic. And I think it's now time to open ourselves to this particular reality, that sustainability should go beyond the traditional practices if we want to address these environmental issues. So the aim of regeneration is, we don't want to minimize the harm we are doing to the environment, but we also wanted to actively restore and rejuvenate our ecosystem. I am not a science person for this matter, but somehow we can work with experts on how to do this, because climate change is a reality. And when business enterprises practice somehow regenerative sustainability, they can invest in a more resilient infrastructure, agricultural practices, so that they can be better prepared to withstand all of these environmental disasters in the future.
Happens when we look at development rather figuratively. Like we lose sight of the stories, the realities on the ground, how people are affected. Like in the Philippines, I'm sure you know this, that farmers are considered poorest of the poor according to PSA data. So I think that that's very much aligned, or that confirms what you said about agricultural lands being transformed into, subdivisions and all, without even considering the impact to the people. So that's on the policy and the program level. Now let's go to the organizational level. How can organizations then integrate sustainability in as part of their culture or as part of their business model? What are your recommendations?
My research, I came up with 4 propositions. How do we embed sustainability into culture? It will always begin with the strategic planning process. That's the most feasible because to ensure that sustainability is being considered in decision making at all levels in the organization, it should not be an isolated initiative, but it's an integral part of the organization's strategic plan. For example, when we come up of a review of our vision, our mission, and strategic direction, the question is sustainability really embedded? So it will start with the plan. Another recommendation is to implement really a robust sustainability metric system. I always believe in this concept. Everything that gets measured gets done. And for us to be able to measure things, it will start with that strategic plan so that we can track the progress on how we are achieving the sustainable goals. And probably it's one way to communicate to our stakeholders, especially to people inside the organization, that our practices should be aligned with sustainability. I also thought of linking probably sustainability performance to employee evaluations. Maybe organizations can provide incentives in order to reinforce the importance of sustainability in their day-to-day operations. And all of these things can only be possible if in the strategic planning process, sustainability is recognized. Otherwise, that would be a very big problem. In my interview with the 5 medium enterprises owners, it was very evident that what worked in their business practices before is still working right now. So sustainability is never part of their plan. So that particular reality hit me, and probably this is where we can do something. That particular conversation with medium enterprises owners made me realize if only they are more aware of the technical repercussions of sustainability, it will be easier for them to plan on their own. So another suggestion is somehow to help them come up with a framework on how to embed sustainability in the strategic planning process. How do we ensure that sustainability can become one of their core values? Will it be part of their vision and mission statement? Case in point, I've seen Unilever's vision statement. Their vision statement is aligned with sustainability because they want to double the company. At the same time, when they're doubling the size of the company, they want to reduce environmental impact. So that itself is a clear statement of how they want to see their future. So all of those plans will be aligned in that particular vision. So I think in order to embed sustainability, it's very important to start with the most basic, and that would be the strategic planning process for organizations.
Was there like a situation or an encounter with that MSME when you realized that they were in fact implementing some of the concepts of sustainability, but they were not aware that that concept is about sustainability? So was there the kind of realization when you were doing research?
What's your understanding of sustainability? And it's simply taking care of the environment by complying with the law. For example, there was one medium enterprise owners who mentioned, we don't use plastic anymore. And that's our idea of sustainability. As simple as using plastic. But beyond that, their concept of sustainability is just for mere compliance. Pag ayaw ng gobyerno na gumamit tayo nito, edi magko-comply tayo because it's mandated by the government. But if it's not mandated, they will not embed it in their business practices. So that's pretty sad. Yeah. For example, we know that for organizations, we can tap suppliers who are somehow practicing sustainable practices as well. But these things do not matter to them since they feel that their business was working before and it is currently working in terms of its current system at the moment.
Yeah.
For example, we know that for organizations, we can tap suppliers who are somehow practicing sustainable practices as well. But these things do not matter to them since they feel that their business was working before and it is currently working in terms of its current system at the moment.
Or maybe they feel that it's more costly to do this compared to like, doing it the traditional way. So I think even for companies, like it's one way to declare it. I mean, it's one thing I should say to declare it as part of your vision, but I think it's another thing to double check whether those visions are in fact localized in those programs. Which is why regulation also plays a very critical role in checking and ensuring that those commitments are being observed, right?
Completely agree.
Like the transactional transition.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. It came out in my study. It can be very costly, and they feel that the main purpose of their business is to earn profits. Still very economistic. If it will require them to spend more, I think they will be hesitating. There would be a hesitation to go towards that particular route of sustainable practices. So cost would be very important for these business owners. If we can show them that we can even save in the long run by practicing sustainability, I think that's one way for us to convince them to go to that particular route.
Very much for those insights. Now, I'd like to ask you, what's your message to the young people who are interested in sustainability and, of course, sustainability in the context of entrepreneurship or even social entrepreneurship?
Teaching undergraduate students taking principles of management with that current shift of paradigm, not just to my students, but for future entrepreneurs. I want to encourage them that the fields of sustainability and entrepreneurship are constantly evolving. I want them to become a lifelong learner like me. We want to seek a lot of opportunities to expand our knowledge and skills because 1.5 years ago, I learned about this particular concept. I never learned about it before. My business practices are still economistic in terms of paradigm. So I would advise to look for mentors and advisors so that they can be guided, someone who can share their experiences and offer valuable insights. I feel that the young can learn from those who have walked the path, which would be very invaluable. Attend symposiums, read all of those scholarly papers, stay informed about global sustainability trends, policy changes, and those emerging technology because for the young, knowledge is really a powerful tool in terms of shaping their future business venture. Maybe that passion for sustainability can be a very powerful force for positive change. And I'd like to remind them that it can be very challenging. It is easier said than done, but let's not be discouraged by the scale of these challenges. Always think big, but start with small things, impactful projects, and learn as you go. Because each step for me would be a progress. I hope that the young will always feel excited about sustainability and entrepreneurship because these things are catalysts for change. I'm not dismissing the fact of the economistic paradigm, but a good balance in terms of humanistic management by integrating sustainability would be very critical. The young can embrace these challenges. They need that commitment in order for our world to be sustainable and equitable in the near future.
It's a very, very good message, no? So again, thank you very much, Mr. Jairo Trevino. I'm sure our viewers have learned so much from your insights and of course, your experience in doing this research. And to our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. This is Norby Salonga and this is LC Talks.